And welcome to Techopia Live. Thank you so very much for those of you that's joining us yet again here today. It is Monday. It is a beautiful sunny day here in Ottawa. And if you're watching this from anywhere else in the world, thank you so much for joining us, because on this show, we talk about so much more than just a startup company. We speak to CEOs and executives about the tech community in Ottawa and how that affects things on a both local and global perspective. And we're pretty fortunate because here in our city, we are doing so many amazing things, and we are surrounded by some amazing people. And here next to me is one of those amazing guys. He looks so relaxed. He looks like the most subdued, and he's the most humble person that I've met. Paul Vallet, CEO and founder of Pythian. Thank you so much for joining us today. People out there that do not know who Pythian is just yet, or haven't had the opportunity to meet you just yet, I'm so fortunate to showcase a little bit who you are and what you have done. I guess the most amazing thing is that you have just celebrated 20-year anniversary of your company, and you've done so many things, and you've evolved so much. So let's talk about this first. Let's talk a little bit about 20 years. Can you believe it, and how the company has changed, and how that journey's been?
Sure. Well, thank you very much, and thank you for having me. So yeah, 20 years, you're right. It's a very long time. It feels like we are in a perpetual startup mode. I guess Pythian started in our earliest incarnation as a staff augmentation for database administration, focused exclusively on the New York City market in our early years. And in New York in the late 90s, there was a real explosion in data infrastructure deployments, especially because of the media sector. So if California was really about core tech, New York had a lot of media deployments then. And we found our market there in New York focused on data infrastructure. And over these last 20 years, the importance of data has really changed a lot in these last 20 years. Those of us who cared about data a lot back then, almost all of us who cared about data a lot back then have had amazing careers. And Pythian has had an amazing trajectory, all in the back of this really remarkable trajectory that the data industry itself has had over those years. The company has changed quite a bit over those 20 years as well. We have definitely focused more and more on intellectual property, on software development, on building our opportunities in the remote work, future of work industry as well. So, I mean, the Pythian of today is nothing like the Pythian of the late 90s, and we've grown to become a company with just a bit over 400 people now.
No, that's exciting. I mean, you've done so many great things, and you say the word data, and I mean, once again, you say individuals that's been in the data space for so long have truly, evolved once again. I guess I should ask a little bit, data as a service. I mean, that is once again a shift in your business and how you've adapted to what people need now more than ever. How has that new approach, changed things for your companies? And I guess how is that changing the way you look to the future?
So we discovered, I guess, starting about 2011, 2012, when we launched our big data practice, we discovered that customers had a problem in common, which is that as they adopted more and more software as a service deployments, they ended up having their data no longer all in their own data center. So in the good old days before the SaaS explosion, you would have most of your enterprise data in your own data centers, which meant that you had a relatively simple problem in terms of having it all in one place and using it for analytics purposes. Because of this SaaS explosion, but also because of the real dramatic increase in third-party data sources and public data sources. I'm thinking of data sources like Facebook and Twitter, or third-party data sources like market data, right? Because of that, companies now, they have their data spread out all over the place. They might have their sales data in Salesforce. They might have their financial data in a different SaaS platform like Intact or possibly Microsoft Dynamics. And they still have their own internal data. And so we realized that we were doing the same project over and over again, which is to help customers choose their cloud-native data integration platform, integrate all of the relevant technologies necessary to make it all work well together, ingest the data from their existing analytics or operational data sources, ingest it from the SaaS databases as well. Usually you can only access those through APIs. You can't access the data directly. And also integrate in public data sources. And the point being that as we were doing this project over and over again, we realized that, you know, there was an opportunity here to build an actual platform instead. So Pythian, I guess, integrated our security capability, our cloud architecture capability, our managed services capability, our data integration capability into one analytics as a service platform. Now, you know how SaaS, software as a service, is pronounced SaaS. So it kind of leads to a challenge because it means that analytics as a service is going to be pronounced well. So we decided to name our analytics as a platform, analytics as a service platform, Kick. So we're calling it Kick Analytics as a Service, or Kick-Ass. And it is Kick-Ass. We're very proud of it. As far as how it's changed Pythian, well, one of the things that we need to do in order to stay relevant in a cloud native world is we need to elevate our capabilities, and we need to start providing more completed products, right? So historically, Pythian has been able to help our customers by helping their cloud, their infrastructure strategy, their data science strategy, by helping them with their DevOps strategy. DevOps, of course, being this major trend in the industry where computer scientists are automating their own workloads. By helping them with all of those strategies, that is our bread and butter. That's core to our business. But we realize that we're kind of asking the customer to put all these pieces together in their own strategy behind their own curtain. With Kick-Ass, what we're doing is we're really putting all of those building blocks together for ourselves and delivering a platform that customers really want and need. And essentially, a cloud-native data integration hub is really where most companies want to integrate their data now. Because once you've gone through the work of solving the governance challenges necessary to move your data into a third-party SaaS, software as a service solution, you very, very rarely want to bring that data back into your own data centers. So cloud-native data integration hubs are the future of analytics.
Thank you very much for kind of just giving us a little roundup on that. Now, what's wonderful about your company as well is that I know that you've kind of leaped over across the pond, so to speak, 2008 when you went over to Prague first, and then you kind of moved your company again and your headquarters your European headquarters to London, England. And now you're there pretty much at King's Cross, and you have really, once again, just excelled your European market. Because once again, you know, it's important to be global and be in Europe, but to actually physically be there, obviously that has done a lot for your company. Maybe you can speak to us a little bit about how that change has really once again, just elevated your company's approach and just your connection with your clients on the European market.
Sure. So Pythian first set up internationally in 2003 in Hyderabad. And then in 2005, we set up in Sydney. And then in 2008, as you were saying, we set up in Europe for the first time. But when we first set up in Europe, we set up in Prague. And essentially, we created a delivery capability in Prague. Our delivery capability in Prague, though, was not really a go-to-market strategy in terms of trying to generate a local customer base in Europe. And that really started only a few years ago out of London in the UK. So our European headquarters actually moved to London as part of that decision, as part of that investment. And we realized late last year that our European revenue region was actually our fastest growing global region, faster than any of the sub-regions that we have for the Americas and faster than the Asia-Pacific region by far. And so in light of the success that we had seen with what I would consider very modest resources put behind it, we decided to literally more than double our go-to-market activities in Europe at the beginning of this year. And part of those decisions included moving our European headquarters into this gorgeous new offices at King's Cross, right next door to Google's new UK headquarters. But also adding to our team in sales and marketing and over there. I am just back. I was there last week and I hosted an amazing one-day, full-day conference called the Love Your Data Conference. And that conference we co-hosted at Google's offices in London. So it was really wonderful to be hosting there with our partner Google and talking about what Pythian's, not only talking about Pythian services, but also talking about the future of the data industry, including a very fascinating segment on Europeans' GDPR, which is their General Data Protection Regulation. Let's just say that data in Europe right now is all the rage because of the consequences of having data and how companies want to strategically unlock the value of their data, but that how that mandate is in tension and sometimes even in opposition to data privacy and use of data regulations that Europe has adopted. So it's an exciting time to be in Europe for sure.
Well, Paul, it seems like there's so much happening for Pythian at the moment, and it seems like 20 years is really just real infancy for where the company is going, and congratulations on all the amazing success. And I'll just have you speak to one more last point. You have your company starting here in Ottawa. Of course, the wonderful thing about it is you've seen how just the community has grown, business has grown, the tech community has grown, and also how just our resources have changed and how the world is looking at Ottawa. How's that influenced you, and what does that mean to you as a company, and what do you see for the future?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that it is a much more fertile place to start a company now than it was 20 years ago. When I think of the Ottawa of 20 years ago, it was a world that was dominated by Nortel, JDS Uniphase, and the federal government as the major employers. It was a very much exclusive club in terms of being in the tech community at that time. I remember writing some people trying to get into the exclusive club and getting denied even access to the who's who of the tech community in the early years of Pythian. I would say that all that has changed dramatically in the last 20 years. I think a lot of organizations, and I'm sitting here in the Bayview Yards, a lot of organizations have come up out of nowhere to try to help entrepreneurs find their markets, to find their peers and collaborators, to support each other. And I'm amazed and delighted at just how much better it is in terms of a tech hub today than it was back then. So I think we have a very bright future to look forward to, because the city is full of saplings right now, and the fruit is yet to come. So I'm excited about that. Yeah.
Well, thank you so very much, Paul, for joining us today. Thank you so very much for sharing a little bit more about your company, and congratulations on all the amazing success. And once again, we here in Ottawa are so proud to have Pythian as part of our community, our ecosystem, and continue to share more of your insight about data, because it is obviously something that you've really kind of taken the lead, and it's definitely one of those companies that is making amazing headway. So thank you so much for that, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome. So those of you that's watching this, yes, this was Paul Valet, which is the CEO and founder of Pythian, an amazing company that has just celebrated 20 years. And we are going ahead, actually today, we are fortunate because we have two amazing gentlemen here, and stepping in here in the hot seat now, we also have CEO of Macadamian Technologies, Fred Belanger. Thank you so much, Fred, for joining us today. It's so awesome to have you here. I mean, it's kind of interesting because, and I'm going to bring up Macadamian's side here as well. You know, it's interesting because it's been such a journey, and seeing once again what your company has done over the years and how you have changed as well. And for those of you that don't know much about Macadamian Technologies, that is why we have Fred here. And in fact, Fred joined us here on Techopia Live months ago, and we were talking back then of how the company is evolving and how it's changing. But let's talk firstly, what is coming up? There's an anniversary coming up for you too as well. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is great to be here. And indeed, I was here actually, I guess 9-10 months ago, right? In the snowstorm or something. And it was awesome. The roads were empty. No, but back on the show then, I announced that we were going to have a party and that everybody was invited. It is true, everybody's invited. So come and join us at ZB October 11th, the 20th anniversary of Macadamian. We're going to be celebrating, I guess, this great region that we live in that has allowed Macadamian to prosper in because of its talent, because of its environment in which, that is favorable to tech, as well as our alumni and our current employees, partners, all of this great crew is going to get together and celebrate what Macadamian is all about.
Now, Fred, let's talk a little bit once again. 9 months ago, 10 months ago, when we first spoke as well, there was some evolutions taking place as well. It's 20 years for you as well. I mean, your company has grown and changed and evolved, and you've become also more targeted and streamlined in various areas now more than you were maybe, 10, 15 years ago. Maybe you can kind of guide us a little bit how that focus has shifted for you and where you're focusing now and where you see that go in the future.
Yeah, actually, we've evolved, and like any companies out there, you need to evolve with the marketplace. We started as a company, doing product development. We're still a product development company. We are at the heart of Macadamian. Who we are, the statement is we're problem solvers, and we aspire to create solution using software that will be both enriching people's lives and a joy to use. For us, this is super important that the problem we solve are easy to use and compelling in terms of whoever's going to use it. Over the years, this has evolved. Like we've done telecom, we've done desktop software and the graphics in the early days. Now we're totally into healthcare. Healthcare is something that we started in 2011. It's growing rapidly for us. And we find a huge purpose in doing stuff and solutions around healthcare because healthcare is having its IT moment. A lot more technologies is going into healthcare and it's accelerating the pace of healthcare in terms of innovation and the need for the type of services that we provide to the solutions that are going to be deployed at home or the aging population or the chronic diseases explosion are, the possibilities are endless, and we are having a huge kick out of keeping people away from hospital, making them healthier, faster, all those things that are super important for our kids, our parents, our partners. We get to do every day. We never thought that we actually would be collaborating and contributing so much. Like, at the end of the day, I thought doctors and nurses were responsible for helping people around healthcare. Well, now IT is taking such a greater role into this whole space that we get to play in this. And this is just why we wake up every day now.
And it's so great to hear that because your team is so motivated, and once again, just like Pythian, two great companies that have done so much in 20 years, and now you're at a stage where once again you're just accelerating. So when you talk about the health community, and as you say, it's now health is having its IT moment, and I think that's so powerful. Why do you think has it taken so long? Is it just the technology per se that needed to catch up, or is it really just a mindset that needed to change within the health industry that you feel that caused this change and shift?
That's a great question. And my theory, the world according to Fred on this anyway, is that, we used to be, we're still dealing with doctors in their clinics and everything, but everything was on paper. Now that paper document or dossier or whatever file for each patient is actually being digitalized. And so every clinic has more or less like an electronic file for their patients. And now we're getting to this point where the clinics are sharing their information with the hospitals or other service providers that are responsible for the coordinated care stuff. And as you break down those silos, information wants to be free in some shape or form, to use this huge tagline. And it's accelerating the pace of innovation tremendously because the information is electronic, and because it's electronic, it's a lot more accessible. Because it's a lot more accessible, it can be researched, it can be, verified so much more quickly, and all those things are allowing people to give better care faster. Because of this, and now that it is electronic, a lot more things can be connected and pushing into the patient record management systems. And so when you have access to this information, the loop is so much tighter than it used to, because the computers can participate so much more into the preventive care just as much as the acute care, just as much as the post-acute care.
Now, President of the Information Technology Association of Canada, that is quite a role, and it shows obviously your engagement within the community as well. Also dealing with practitioners now more frequently, and also dealing with government on various regulations, so on and so forth. I want to bring up the fact that, the recent changes that's happened within the tax realm and what that could change for businesses as they move forward. What has been your overall insight on that? What has been the feedback a little bit that you've gotten? Could that change things? Could that not change things? Is it good to have that discussion? Insight a little bit.
That's a great question too. So there's no question that we all aspire to make Canada better and greater, and we are actually living in a wonderful country, and I'm so proud of the country that we live in, always striving to be better than it is or better than it was yesterday. And at the end of the day, there are changes that are required, and we all believe in the concept of fairness. At the same time, there are changes underway right now that could be problematic for what I believe is the startup ecosystem and entrepreneurship in Canada. And those are the concerns that I have right now that, to me, are super important to consider more, with more attention, be more specific and intentional with those changes than what we've been. I think the consultation is going by very fast. A lot of people are voicing their opinions. I'm looking forward to having conversations with the power that might be on the finance side, which is happening ongoingly. So they're listening, and I've always said that the Trudeau government has been a government that has been very good listener to the tech world, and I hope that they hear our message here that, at the end of the day, this tech ecosystem that is starting up needs to actually continue to boot up. And we're competing against great nations out there. Now getting angel money flushing that out of the ecosystem is a danger with what's going on. Just as well, friends and family money could be flushed out of the system with with the legislation that they're trying to pass. So we'll see where we land. I'm optimistic that we're going to be heard because they've clearly shown a pattern that they were listening to and not, adamant that things would be as they see it at first kind of thing, but they can learn from everyone inputting into this great question.
Now, once again, I think it's opened up a discussion, which is great. And the other day we just spoke about it. It's interesting because it is a clear indication of really what's involved in starting a business and what's really involved in growing a business. And as you say, being competitive with so many other countries out there. And we are fortunate to be in a city as well now where it's just everybody is so supportive with one another to grow this ecosystem. And so we want to continue to grow that. Thank you for your insight on that. And I guess let's just take one more step towards the health industry as well. In your space, IT, once again, in the health industry, it's always been there. It's maybe not been as much in the forefront as it is now more than ever as we move forward faster. But how is regulations keeping up with the technology? Do you feel that there's a lot of regulations that it's still a little bit slow in that aspect, or is it actually keeping up for you to make those strides faster and quicker?
Well, in the context of my business personally, healthcare regulations are enormous, and they're enormous for a good reason. HIPAA compliance or whatever the equivalent is in the rest of the world and even in Canada here is super important for protecting the information of patients and making sure that, everything is either anonymized or in the context of cannot be shared with somebody that should not be reading your information is super important. And as such, those regulations I'm fully on board with, and I think they're well thought out. There are changes, and we're clearly seeing signals now from FDA to actually have a lot more pre-clearance of people and organizations who could be creating solutions that are going to be, dedicated to the healthcare world. And I think this is a super important movement and progress. Look at it as the Nexus program at the airport kind of thing. You have pre-cleared passengers that can go through this line and would allow for even more innovation, faster, greater for everyone around the table. I mean, we're not getting any younger, and every day 10,000 people are crossing the 65 years old mark in North America for the next 20 years. We got to get going here because those folks will need solutions that don't exist, and it's very important that we can get to market with those solutions in a rapid manner.
Wonderful. So let's leave it with this question. For any company out there that is starting and developing and growing and want to get into artificial intelligence or even within the health industry, what would be your first piece of advice to any company like that, or maybe something that you've learned now in this transition and this journey up to this point that you'd like to share?
Well, it's a super big question. And so in the context of starting a business, you know, like I'd start with how bad you want it kind of thing, and don't take too long term. Don't think too long term. Like I never thought when I started the business 20 years ago that I would be in business 20 years later. Like I started with a goal that was what I believe is a stretch goal over the next 3 years and try to make that work. And sure enough, we didn't land where I thought we were going to land, but with the resolve and the desire to succeed, you adapt and you listen to the signals and you adapt again and you learn. And so be ready to fall flat on your face a few times. That's super, super important because you know the market is going to decide whatever you think is a great idea. The market decide otherwise. Well, learn from that and adapt. And as much as you need to be pig-headed, you actually need to be listening to the signals that are going on. And so starting a company has never been, in my mind, easier than it is today. And I would encourage anyone who actually wants to give it a shot to, you know, we have great places here in town, like accelerators as well as Invest Ottawa, where mentorship can be provided, you know, and guidance for those folks who don't necessarily know how to go about it, because we do not all have been raised in a family of entrepreneurs or that type of thing. And so those reflexes, they need to be learned, but give it a shot. It's, you know, it's well worth it. It's very rewarding. It's never a dull moment. And, you know, it's high that are really high and it's lows that are, you know, they make you cry. But at the end of the day, you grow from it. And I think it's a fantastic place to be.
Well, Fred, thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you so much for sharing your excitement and enthusiasm, and congratulations on all the success. This really, we should be calling this the 20th anniversary show, because it's not every day that we have two awesome companies that's celebrating their anniversary so close to one another. Now, once again, for those of you that's watching this, unfortunately you've missed Pythian's 20th anniversary party, but you can definitely still make it to Macadamian's amazing event. What's wonderful about your event, it's not just a celebration, but it's also an opportunity to come and engage with a great speaker as well. It's an evening to talk about the health industry as well. It's just a really nice community. So if you're watching this, make sure we'll have the link associated with this video. So click on that and go check out the event page. There is some spots left, but you got to get involved, and it's going to be an awesome night as well. And we're going to celebrate Macadamian and also, of course, all the changes that's happening within the industry. So thank you so much, Fred, for joining us today. Thank you so much for joining us here on Techopia Live. If you haven't done so already, make sure you join us either on Mondays at 12:15 or on Wednesdays at 12:15 as we showcase some awesome CEOs and executives, and of course talk about tech and what Ottawa is doing and what is tech doing here in our city, and as we go out there into the world and take over piece by piece by piece. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you next time. Bye for now.